The purpose of this podcast is to educate and inform. It is no substitute for professional care by your doctor or your qualified healthcare professional. Never disregard or delay professional medical advice because of something you've heard on this podcast or in any linked material. Guests who speak on this podcast express their own opinions, experience, and conclusions. Dr. Shirley neither endorses nor opposes any particular opinion discussed on this podcast. The views expressed on this podcast have no relation to those of any academic, hospital, practice, institution, or other entity with which Dr. Shirley may be affiliated.
Welcome to Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty. This podcast is curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD, as the definitive source of holistic wellness through beauty.
Not too long ago, I posted an article from a guest writer on my plastic surgery professional blog called elementsandgraces.com, and I thought that this article, the subject was so timely and appropriate and important that I thought I would read it to you on this episode of 15 Minutes of Fab on the Forever Fab podcast. So the topic of the article is Food and Your Mood, Its Impact on Mental Health. And the guest writer is Katie Weniger, a content writer for IIN, or the Institute of Integrative Nutrition. So in Katie's words, good mental health translates to good physical health. And the inverse is also true. Being physically well affects mental health. Research shows that proper nutrition and regular exercise play an enormous role in supporting mental well-being. It's also harder to keep mentally well when you're eating less than nutritious foods. Studies show that fast food, it's very convenient, of course, and it's an easy choice for those struggling with their mental health. It can lead to feelings of depression and higher levels of anxiety. So how does diet actually impact your mood? Well, let's travel to the gut and find out. The two-way connection of nutrition and mental health is such that mental illness is one of the most common conditions that affect people worldwide. According to research published in June 2022 by the World Health Organization, or WHO, nearly 1 billion people around the globe suffer from some form of mental disorder. The figure gets even grimmer when you realize that it includes nearly 1 in 7 teenagers worldwide. WHO also found that rates of depression and anxiety have skyrocketed 25% since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And according to WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, quote, good mental health translates to good physical health. Investment into mental health is an investment into a better life and future for all, end quote. If you have a mental illness, struggle emotionally, or have mental health concerns, or know someone who does, there are ways to help. Organizations like Checkpoint, Help Guide, and National Institutes of Mental Health all offer resources to find help for you, a friend, or family member. The relationship between the food you eat and your gut. Have you ever been nauseated before important events? Or do feelings of anxiety send you running to the restroom? The gastrointestinal or GI system is highly sensitive to our emotions. There's a reason it's known as a, quote, gut feeling, end quote. Your GI tract is home to trillions of bacteria that influence the production of neurotransmitters, which are chemical substances that work around the clock to carry messages from the gut to your brain and then back to the gut. It's a feedback loop. So a well-rounded diet promotes the growth of bacteria that improve neurotransmitter function, while a poor diet can lead to inflammation and slow down production of neurotransmitters. Two chemicals integral to good mental health are dopamine and serotonin, and they are part of this process as well. Serotonin in particular is mainly manufactured in the GI tract, which means that feeding your healthy gut bacteria leads to proper production of this feel-good hormone. The connection between gut and brain health has become clearer over the years, with research revealing that they are intricately linked. Poor gut health has even been reported as one possible cause for several mental disorders, including anxiety and depression. Stress can exacerbate digestive problems, and digestive upset contributes to stress levels. Managing mental health and gut health are nearly one and the same. Here are 6 foods to boost your mental health. Certain foods and food groups have the potential to improve your mental health, working as a complement to appropriate coaching, psychological counseling, and any medications your care team determines necessary. Number 1, whole grains. Whole grains are digested more slowly than processed grains, reducing blood sugar spikes that can cause inflammation and therefore spikes in anxiety. The creator of the anti-inflammatory diet and food pyramid, Andrew Weil, MD, recommends eating at least 3 to 5 servings of whole grains each day to improve inflammation levels. Whole grains include brown rice and wild rice, barley, steel-cut oats, and quinoa. Number 2, fermented foods. Fermented foods are key to a healthy digestive system and gut, as they balance the ratio between good and bad bacteria. They have both probiotics and prebiotics, which are crucial for gut health. An Oxford University study shows that eating prebiotics, which are the foods that feed probiotics to create a healthy gut, reduces cortisol, which is a stress hormone, and the cortisol response, improving emotional well-being. So fermented foods include kimchi, sauerkraut, pickles, kombucha, and kefir. Number 3, leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables. Leafy greens such as kale, spinach, collards, and Swiss chard are high in folate, which helps your body manufacture the mood-regulating chemicals serotonin and dopamine. Higher levels of these quote-unquote happy hormones correlate to lower levels of cortisol in the bloodstream. Cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage contain high levels of fiber, a key component in supporting gut health. Researchers found that a diet including enough fiber, quote, potentially lowers inflammation by modifying both the pH and the permeability of the gut, end quote. Lower levels of inflammation can then alter neurotransmitter connections and then reduce symptoms of depression. Another food group, foods high in omega-3s. Research shows that rates of depression are lower in countries where the populations consume higher amounts of fish. It's thought that the essential omega-3 fatty acids, eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA, and docosahexaenoic acid, DHA, which help develop brain tissue, can prevent depression and anxiety. Foods high in omega-3 fatty acids include salmon and cod, chia seeds, walnuts, and flax seeds. Number 5, members of the allium family, garlic and onions. Garlic and onions are rich in prebiotics, delivering fiber and nutrition to your gut microbiome. Allium flavonols have anti-inflammatory effects that can prevent oxidative stress that's been linked to depression and anxiety. And finally, foods high in vitamin D. Rates of depression are higher in people who have a vitamin D deficiency. It's also thought to play a role in seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, depression that commonly starts in the fall, lasts through winter, and subsides in the sunnier spring and summer months. Our bodies produce vitamin D after sun exposure, but too much sun exposure can lead to an increased risk of developing skin cancer. Foods high in vitamin D include eggs, mackerel, mushrooms, and vitamin D fortified milk. The bottom line. The principles of nutritional psychology tell us that psychiatry and nutrition are tied. Psychologist and IIN visiting faculty member Drew Ramsey, MD, emphasizes this connection and recommends focusing on nutrient-dense food as a way to balance when dealing with food and mental health. But nutrition is just one part of ensuring well-being. Protecting your mental health also involves learning coping skills, allowing yourself to say no when the situation calls for it, practicing meditation and grounding techniques, drinking enough water, seeking help from professionals when you need to. I would also add to Katie's commentary that getting enough sleep, getting proper exercise, getting perspective, having a social network, and keeping your mind and brain stimulated are also ways to help stave off the blues. So that was my reading of Katie Weniger's timely and very scholarly article on food and how the food you eat impacts your mental health. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of 15 Minutes of Fab on the Forever Fab podcast. And as always, stay beautiful and fabulous inside and out.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Forever Fab, the podcast on fashion, the art of living, and all things beauty, curated by Dr. Shirley Madhere, MD. Live beautifully and help make the world a more beautiful place.